Aloha and welcome to Digits Part 3. In this practice WOD, what we're going to do is add a new collection to our system. So instead of mocking up the data in an array of objects, we're going to actually have a regular Mongo collection. We're going to, on startup, seed it with some sample data. We'll publish it to the client, and then we'll subscribe to it. So our pages are actually seeing real contacts from the database. So it's exciting. Now it's going to start actually kind of acting like a real, regular old web app. Okay, so this is an example of what you'll see if you're logged in as john@foo.com. It looks just like the old one, except there's only 2 contacts, because once we implement this collection, each contact will have an owner, and you'll only see the contacts that you have personally created, and our seed data will only give 2 contacts to John and 1 to the admin, who's our other user. Okay, so you can watch the screencast before you try. Really good to read the chapters of the Meteor Guide around collections and publications. And before starting, take your last WOD and merge it into master, so that master contains the most recent version of the system. Okay, and once you've merged, you can start it up, and you can see here, if I log in as john@foo.com, then you can see if I list contacts, we've got that version of the system all implemented into master, which we can see by looking here. I'm in the master branch. Okay. Again, don't watch this and pause every 30 seconds and type. Try to do it by yourself. You'll learn a lot more. It will be harder, but you'll learn more. Okay, so let's start the timer. We're going to create a branch called Contacts Collection 1. So we'll go here, new branch, Contacts Collection 1. And let's publish that sucker. Okay. And we've already started. You can see here we've already got the system running, so we don't have to do that again. No errors. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is define the contacts collection. There's a few things we got to do. Again, what I like about the template is we can kind of use that as a basis, and it can speed things up. So what I'll do to create a new collection is I'll copy this stuff directory, paste it, call it contact, and then go through and fix things inside. So for example, this import statement needs to be importing contact.js, and this function F6, shift function 6, shift F6 is rename, so we can rename this to contact.js, and then inside here, let's take a look. So we want to call the collection contacts, not stuff. So you kind of read through each line and look for places where things need to be changed. So the schema has got to be called contact schema, rather than new simple schema. And then we'll do the export down here just to get rid of some of these things. Contact schema, contacts. Okay, but here's where things get interesting, because we want to have different fields, right? And the fields we want to have are first name, and they're all strings. Let me go back. I'm kind of getting ahead. So we're going to make a copy of the stuff directory, called it contact. We did that. We renamed stuff.js to contact.js. We edited index.js to import contact.js. We did that. Now we're going to rename the collection to contacts. We rename the schema. First name, last name, address, image, description, and owner. All are strings. Those are the fields we need for our contacts collection. So what I'll do is I'll just say first name, and a propeller D is a duplicate line. So first name, last name, address, image, description. I think that's all of the fields. So last name, well, maybe that wasn't the best way to do it. Image, description, oh, an address, right? Doesn't really matter the order, but we got to have all those things in there. Okay, so there's all our fields, and let's see what they don't like. Okay, so we're using ESLint heavily here to make sure that we're not messing up. So there's our contacts database. First name, last name, address, image, description, and owner. So there's 6 fields, just counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, so we got all the fields. Now we load the context collection definition on both client and server when the system starts up. And to do that, we edit the app import startup both index.js to load API contact. So we go back over here. We go to import startup both index.js. You can see it's loading stuff. So we just want it to load contact as well. And this line basically says if this is a directory name, which it is, it's just going to go into the index.js file and do whatever that index.js file. It's almost like there's an implicit, I mean, that's literally what it is. There's an implicit index.js there if you don't specify it. And the reason why we're making these subdirectories is because in the future you'll find that you want to have more than one file associated with the API, and so we're just kind of setting that up in advance, even though right now we don't need it. A little bit of future proofing. Okay. So we've done that. We've loaded the context collection on both client and server because we've added it to this import startup both index.js, which is what Meteor wants, or the way we've set things up, it's going to happen. Now we want to initialize the collection with sample contacts. So in import startup server, make a copy of stuff.js and call it contact.js, and edit server index.js to load context.js. Rename the publication. Okay, so in server stuff.js, we're going to make a copy of that, paste it, and call it contact.js. And then let's look in here. So we're adding, okay, so basically what this does is this looks through the, well, okay, let's start fixing it. So we want to do the same thing, initialize the database when it's empty with some default contacts. So we want to import contacts from blah, blah, blah. And this function we want to insert into the contacts database the data. And let's put like the last name so we get some feedback when we're adding somebody. So data.lastname, data.owner. And then we'll say if contacts.find.count equals 0, then if Meteor setting, and then we're going to define a new field here. So skipping ahead, we have this in the config development settings file, we have this default data. We're going to have a new one called default contacts. Okay? And so we'll say if this field exists, so we don't get like a null pointer error, if default contacts, creating default contacts, meteor.settings, default contacts.map, okay? We'll just take each element of that seed data and we'll call add data. Add data will just print out a line saying what this was and then insert it. Okay, so that's the initialization code for contacts. And now we want to do the publications for contacts. So we can say Meteor publish contacts, and then if user ID exists, then we'll say contacts.find. So the publication, the regular publication says if the user exists, then we're going to return the result of finding all of the contacts associated with this specific user, i.e., here's the guy's username. We use the Meteor call to get that, and then we know the owner field is going to be filled with the username. Otherwise, we return this.ready saying we couldn't, no one was logged in, and this is the standard Meteor thing you do to just allow this function to return. And then we'll also create, well, as long as we're here, we'll make a contact contacts admin, I guess we'll call it that, and then we'll say contacts.find, and if you're in an admin role, then we're just going to find all of the contacts. Let me just see how I was naming this here. Make a copy, rename the publication. All right, I don't know. So we'll just call it contacts admin contacts, and hopefully that will be fine. Okay, so we look here and we see we don't have any, we have these warnings. Oh, this is because we have a console statement. So that'll be okay. We'll allow that to happen. So now we should have our, we have it set up to have the default data, but so we've edited contact.js to load some seed contact data and start if there are no documents in the context collection. Okay, and now we have to edit API startup server index.js to actually import that file. So in index.js, we need to make sure that file gets loaded on startup. So contact.js means this file will now be loaded, which means we'll initialize the data and we'll make the publications and so forth. Okay, good. Now we have to go into settings.development.json and define a field called default contacts with some objects, and we're going to use the contacts array from list contacts. So you remember back before in list contacts we have that fake data. So we're going to move that out of here and move it really where it should be. It really should be in the configuration file, because that's where the other stuff is, and that allows you to actually change the default data by editing your development, your settings file, rather than going into the source code. So it's a cleaner way to do it. So we'll call this default contacts, if I can spell, and then we'll go back over to this and we'll say copy, and then we'll paste. Okay, and this is where, you know, this is pretty ugly. It turns out that this is JSON, and what we really need is, or what we were taking was JavaScript, and we've got to convert it to JSON. So that's kind of sucky. But fortunately, IntelliJ has some ways. Oops, this is actually way not good. Want it to look like that. Okay, so fortunately IntelliJ has some ways to make life a little easier. So we have this propeller R function, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say first name colon, we're going to replace that everywhere by first name in quotes with a colon, and we can say replace all, and now that looks better. And then we'll go through for all 6 fields. Last name has to be quote last name, and image, yes, this is painful, but sometimes I don't know a better way. Description, or a faster way, I guess. Description, and now, oh, address. There was another one in there. So replace all. And now these single quotes are supposed to be double quotes. So we'll change all of them. And we're almost there. We've got these plus signs because it turns out that JSON doesn't like plus signs. So what we'll do is we'll just basically make long strings. So we can do this, we can do this, and then for Kim's there's like a fair amount of it, but just takes a couple seconds. And unfortunately her last little thing has a quote in, so we'll put single quotes in here so that and then in JSON you can't have trailing commas, so we have to get rid of them, and you can't have a trailing comma. And let me do a perpetual L just to see. Okay, so that looks, we get the check mark, which is awesome, which means that this is is an appropriate, a properly formatted JSON file called default contacts. Okay. Yeah, so that's a hassle. Oh, we have to add an owner field, right? We use john.foo for the first two and admin.foo for the others. So let's go back. Whoops. Let's go back over here. And I could just actually copy this and then paste and then paste. And then the last one we'll paste. But oops, I was using the wrong. Okay, so we say this guy is John, and this guy is John, and the last one's owned by admin. So the first two owned by John at foo.com, the last one owned by admin. Okay, so we have now created default contacts in settings.development.json. Let's just go back to server startup contact.js. So we have this default contacts that we're going to read in. So that looks pretty good to me. So we're going to now stop Meteor. We got to invoke Meteor Reset to clear the database, because basically the database already has some stuff in it. And so if we don't clear it out, we won't actually run that code, because the code is checking to see if stuff is there. So we'll do a Control-C to exit. We'll do a Meteor Reset. Oh, see, it did actually add some, so that's good. And then we'll do a Meteor npm run start. Okay, which will really now it turns out that ran because there was a moment in time where there wasn't any context in the context database, and we're only checking one of the collections. Let's let this start up and see if we get. If you notice, this is what we should be getting. We define the default users, we define the default data, we define the default contacts. So let's hope that that's what happens. Sweet. Okay. So there they all are, just like it's supposed to. So now we have we've created a collection called contacts, and we've created some default data, and we've read the data in at startup time, which is really nice. We got to edit startup server contact.js to define a publication called contacts and a contacts admin. I think we already did that. Let's just check. So server contact. Yep, here's our publication contacts and our publication contacts admin. Okay, let's find the right. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is edit list context to remove the context field, subscribe to the context publication, and map through this.props.context to generate the displayed context. So this is the fun part. So what we do now is in list contacts, we can now get rid of this field. Okay, and instead we are subscribing to contacts, and we're going to return a property. Instead of calling it return called property stuffs, which we don't care about, we're going to return a property called contacts, which is the result of calling contacts find fetch. And we notice now that we don't have contact. So from our import, we're going to import the definition of this contacts collection from imports API contact. And then we've got to say this dot props, because now the contacts are not a field, which would be this dot props, but instead we're passing it in as a property using the React thing, right? The React property stuff. And then React says, hey, wait a second, contacts is missing in props.validation. So what we have to do is change this to contacts so that React knows, it can do its kind of type checking type thing. All right, so having done that, let's see what else. Map through this.props.contacts. Okay, so we should be good. Let's go now back to digits. Let's log in to John at foo.com. Give the password. And voila! Okay, we can see that we get our two contacts that are owned by John. Whoops. Which is what we wanted. Okay, and then if we log in and log out and log in as admin, we should only see one. So let's just do that just to convince ourselves that everything works the way we want. So admin at foo.com, change me, submit, list contacts, bingo. Okay, so this list contacts field is only listing the contacts associated with the currently logged in user. We had two default data items for John, one for admin, so it's working just the way we like. All right, so the admin page, last thing. This is super easy. What we want to do in the admin page is display all of the contacts and the user that they are associated with. So the way we're going to do that is create a special element, contacts, called contact admin. We're going to create a special page, list contacts admin, and then in layouts we're going to have the admin, we'll have a route that goes to that. So just take a couple seconds to do that. This is easy. So we'll start with famous last words, right? So we'll start with the component contact.js. We'll make a copy of it and we'll call this contact admin, and we have to say contact admin here, and then we have to edit that and edit that. So this is now defined as a contact admin. And then to display that data, what looks good to me from seeing the fiddling around with, with semantic UI is if we just look at the way semantic UI does it. Okay, to create this little guy at the bottom with a thin little line, you say this card contact extra. So I think that looks pretty good. So let's just do that, and then inside we will say card.contact owner. Okay, so that looks good. So that's our contact admin, and then we need to make a list contacts admin, and that's going to be, it's going to change the contact admin. We're going to subscribe to the contacts admin publication rather than contacts, and then we'll map to contact admin, this new component we created, not to just the standard contact. So we're going to get all of the contacts for, given that we're an admin when we see this page, and we'll use our new component for mapping it out. So list contacts, make a copy of that. We're going to call this list contacts admin, and we'll call this admin. We'll call this admin, and we'll call this admin. Okay, and then we just map to contact admin rather than just a plain vanilla contact. And so we gotta make this correct. So see how ESLint is just, and IntelliJ is really helping us out to figure out what we have to edit so that things actually go where we want. And then we're subscribing to contacts admin, so we get all of the contacts. Okay, so we did that, and then finally in app.jsx we want to make the admin route go to list contacts admin. So let's go to here, and the admin list contacts admin, and that makes this not defined, list contacts admin, and then we change the path to actually be what we need. So If we do all that, okay, we should have our admin page working. So let's go back to digits. And we're logged in as admin. And if we click on admin, voila, you can see that we get our 3 contacts. We get our admin at the bottom, and looks good. Okay, so whoops, that took us about, we'll call it 24 minutes. And so we will Control-C to stop Meteor. And we will commit push context collection 1 with the context collection finished in 24 minutes. So we'll say contacts collection 1 finished in 24 minutes. And we'll commit, and we'll push. And there you have it. Okay, so that's a little bit longer, but the last 5 minutes is really super straightforward. And what we now have is we have this great little application that isn't running right now, so I can't go through it. But we have an admin page which has a special publication that allows it to have kind of superpowers, and then the other regular pages are pages that just show data associated with the particular logged in user, whoever they are. And if you go through the Meteor application template screencast, you'll learn why it is that only the admin, only someone with the admin role is actually able to log in and see this admin page and to be able to get access to all of the data. All right, there you have it. On to the next one. We're going to actually, in the next screencast, we're going to start using forms so that we can add and edit data, and then we'll be pretty good.